Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to a special program from SIKH Channel about Sikh art, and I'm joined by a very special guest and his brother, Bhagatvinder Singh Dhesi, also known as Ben Dhesi. Ben, welcome to SIKH Channel.
Waheguru, thank you for having me and my brother today.
Great.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Perhaps we can just start with your name, because I was intrigued. Bhagatvinder Singh Dhesi, it's quite an unusual name, very long name. How did you get that first name?
So my great-granddad was called Bhagat Singh and my dad was called Govinda. So I think my parents thought it was a good idea to bring both names together. But it's a great name, but it's not very practical for everyday life.
So you're known as Ben?
So yeah,
I'm
known as Ben, so to most people. So when you're giving people your name on the phone, it's a lot easier.
And your younger brother's come with you today to help her carry some of this beautiful artwork. So thank you for joining us.
No, of course, yeah.
Right, Bhagatvinder, Ben, perhaps we can start by speaking a little bit about your family background before we discuss your artistic style and your artwork, which is featured in the program. Can you tell us a little bit about your family? Where did you grow up? About your parents?
Yeah, well, we grew up in Bradford, and when we were there, my grandfather actually founded the Bradford Gurdwara, one of the first founding members of the Bradford Gurdwara.
That's amazing. And when did your grandfather, did he come in the 50s or 60s?
In the 50s, yeah.
Very long time ago.
And he was in Punjab, he was a teacher, and but for a time he worked in the factories until he got a teaching job in Bradford.
Would you like to share his name, because many of our viewers from Yorkshire, from Bradford, may remember your grandfather. What was his full name?
His full name was Sadhu Singh Dhesi.
Sadhu Singh Dhesi.
Yeah.
Anybody in Yorkshire, in the Bradford area, any of our older members of our community, if you remember Sadhu Singh Dhesi, please get in touch.
And we moved to London when I was 13, and we moved to Croydon, and there my dad was a teacher as well. He got a job at Croydon College, and he taught there for 15 years. And so we left. It was a big cultural change going from Bradford to London.
Especially Croydon, because Croydon is very much a sort of a white and middle class area. There weren't many Sikh or Asian families there. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And you went from living in a community to living outside a community. So that's where my interest in Sikh history came from, because I was trying to always connect back with my past and who I was. And I think that's what led to this project.
And during that journey, how easy was it for you to get information about Sikh history? I mean, some of this might have been before the days of the internet.
Yeah, that's right. It was before the internet. So, but you could find things at the Croydon Library if you looked. And actually, I remember the library having some really good books on Sikh history. And so, because my bus had to stop outside the library when I was going home, I could spend some time in there, and that's where I started to learn about the Sikh history, and then that stayed with me all my life, I think.
That's absolutely tremendous. And what is your profession or occupation? And did you go on to study or follow your father's footsteps as a teacher?
No, I went on to be a lawyer, and like yourself.
Absolutely.
And I practiced for about 4 or 5 years, and then I decided that I wanted to be a businessman, and I started a business in 2009, which was helping law firms save money. and that business was, by grew very successful. And my younger brother helped me in that business as well. And when I sold that business, I had some time on my hands, and I came across a book in Bonham's. It was called Inscriptions from the Sikh Canons. So there wasn't much information about the book, but I knew that from my knowledge of Sikh history that this was an important book if it had the inscriptions from Ranjit Singh's canons within the book. So I was lucky enough to buy it, and it's one of the only private copies that ever became available for sale.
Was it an auction, was it?
Yeah.
And was it quite a competitive auction? If you don't mind me asking, how much did you pay for that?
I think the guide price was about £5,000, but it went for, I paid in the end £10,000.
Tremendous. So you placed a very high value on a Sikh book.
Yeah.
It recorded our history, and that's very, very inspiring that you spent that time and effort and money, and it took further your interest.
Yeah, that's right. And at the time, I wanted the book because I wanted to read what the inscription said, because I knew that the canons were really important artifacts for the Sikhs. They were really important weapons for the Sikh kingdom, and that's how battles were fought in those days. So canons were things that were worshipped by the armies, and they were blessed, and they did seva on the canons when they were made as well. So the writings on those canons had to be important, I felt. And so when I got the book, I gave these are the translations. This is how the book looked, and these are the translations. And
can you just take us through?
Yeah.
So these inscriptions come from the canons?
That's correct, yeah. So this inscription would have been on the side of one of the canons. And
one of Maharaja Ranjit Singh's canons. That's amazing. Yeah. And you've taken that inscription and reproduced it in this artwork.
So this artwork, the history of the artwork was when after the Sikh Wars, the British took all the canons and they took them on a 1,000-mile journey to Calcutta, because they didn't want the Sikhs ever to get hold of the canons again, because they thought, we do not want to fight these guys again. Yes. We nearly lost and nearly got kicked out of India, so we have to take their weapons away from them. So we'll take them to Calcutta and melt down the cannons so they can never fight us again. So before they melted them down, one of the high-ranking British officials said, listen, let's take these inscriptions and make some artwork and make it into a book. And then we'll give the book to important people in the empire. So they made about...
As a gift,
as a commemorative war memorial. So they made about 10 books.
Just 10 editions?
Just 10. And most are in museums.
But you've got one?
So I got one. I managed to get one. And when I got them, I saw the translations were in Persian, not Punjabi. So I thought, well, Persian is common language. I'll give it to my friend who's got a translation company in Dubai to translate. But he said to me when he got the book, images of the book, he said, we can't translate this.
Really? That must be quite a surprise.
Yeah, and I asked him why. He said, well, this is a Indo-Persian language that was only spoken hundreds of years ago, and everyone that spoke it or wrote it is now dead.
Really? So it was an ancient language which had disappeared.
That's right. And it was the language used by Ranjit Singh as a universal language for all his people, because he had Muslims, Hindus, Christians. He needed one language that they could all understand, and this was the language that he used, because it was a Mughal language that preceded him. So I sent off...
is there a name for this language? Is it a formal name?
I think it's Indo-Persian.
Indo-Persian.
Yeah.
I've never come across that before. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So it's a fascinating journey for you
Yeah.
to learn all this.
Yeah, and then the problem I had was I'd bought this book and now I faced never knowing what it said. But I managed, I sent off hundreds of emails to people that were Persian experts
Around the world.
around the world. And I found an Italian professor who could translate this work. And when he began translating it, that's when I thought, and the translations were coming back, that's when I thought, this really needs to be shared and reproduced for everyone to see and read about.
That's an amazing story, absolutely incredible. And this has all come, the origin of this, as I understand it, is your childhood interest in Sikh history, in your heritage, in your faith and the Sikh people. And from that has stemmed this incredible journey.
Yeah, that's correct. And when I had the idea to reproduce these, my brother had just finished MIT and it was waiting for his job to start. So I said, listen, can you help me build a website and get these prints made? And he really loved the story, like me, and that's where he was really helpful in now building a beautiful website for us.
That's tremendous. That's an amazing story. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And can you tell us how many different types of prints are there? How many different inscriptions were forthcoming from the canons as recorded in that ancient text in the book?
Yeah.
How many different inscriptions are there?
There are about 60. There's about 60 different inscriptions. And they all, tell a story about Ranjit Singh and his people and the hopes and dreams of his empire. Each canon usually has a name, so this one is called Wings of the Khalsa.
That's obviously the English translation from Indo-Persian.
Correct, yeah. And so
then there's some small print here at the bottom. I don't think our camera can see it.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can read some of it. That's the English translation of this Indo-Persian text.
Yeah. So what this one says, it says, by the grace of the timeless venerated, and usually that timeless venerated is a reference to God. Triumph over the Gurkhas. So this is a reference to Ranjit Singh's big victory over the Gurkha Empire in 1809.
Oh, I see.
And
so it's recording a living history.
Yeah, and it shows how important that victory was for his prestige and his it was a really special moment for him in history.
And who were the Gurkhas?
So the Gurkha Empire was the Tibetan people, and they had a huge empire, and they came into conflict with Ranjit Singh in and around 1809, and Ranjit Singh was the first person to ever defeat the Gurkhas, and that is why he was known as Lord of the Gurkhas, because after the defeat of the Gurkhas he took a large part of Tibet and incorporated that into his kingdom.
That's an amazing story. And he goes on.
Yeah, may his reign and power endure forever. Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the great hero, blessed Maharaja and Lord Adiraj. Adiraj means King of Kings. So it's a term
a title
for somebody who's the highest of the high.
Yes.
In the year 1897, which is in the Christian calendar is 1840, this gun is called Wings of the Khalsa, in accordance with the most honourable, most sacred and supreme commander, splendour of the present age, in the year 1840, under the supervision of the gallant and gifted Aristotle-like and Plato of his time, Master Chevalier General Claude Auguste Court. So Claude Auguste Court was a French Napoleon general who, after the Napoleonic Wars, joined Maharaja Ranjit Singh's army and became the chief cannon maker. So when the cannon was made, often he would be referenced because he would be the one supervising.
His signature.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he brought new ways of cannon making into the empire to make his cannons, Ranjit Singh's cannons, the most powerful in India.
So he brought a new advanced form of weaponry to the Khalsa armies.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that Ranjit Singh was very good at. He would look at everyone and see what benefit they could bring him, irrespective of where they were from and who they were or what religion they were. And that's why his empire was so successful.
Absolutely, absolutely. He saw humanity in everybody, as per the Sikh principles.
Yeah, and so every print tells a story like this, and each cannon is named. And when these cannons came off the factory workshop, we're pretty sure that they would have gone through a seva ceremonial process, because each cannon was a major achievement in itself.
Yes, because how long did they take them? It probably took a long time, a lot of resource.
Correct, yeah. Like each cannon would maybe take months to make, and yeah, would have been quite expensive at the time as well.
So that's tremendous. By producing this artwork, these paintings that you brought and shared with us today in the studio, you're making available to everybody, to the world, these inscriptions on the cannons. People can actually display them as a form of beauty, artwork, but also importantly, they've got the translation and the meaning, so they can have a connection to that important Sikh history.
That's right, and this could have been a forgotten piece of history, really. And through our website, you can download the images, download the translations. We also have a book coming out which has all of the translations and all of the prints, and that again is all available through our website.
That's absolutely amazing and a very inspiring story, and we would like to congratulate you and thank you on behalf of all the Sikh community for doing this great seva, because this service is very important. You've taken an interest in the Sikh history, a forgotten history, and you've brought it to life. And of the 60 different inscriptions and prints which are now in the form of art, do you have a favourite?
I think this one is my favourite because of primarily because of the name, but also the deep blue colour. Blue is my favourite colour, as you can see.
It's my favourite colour as well, blue. I think I'd like to keep this one.
Yeah, these are all with all of the ones we brought here are for you guys. You know, my real dream is for these to be all 60 to be exhibitioned in a Gurdwara somewhere and kept in the Langar Hall somewhere, because I think when children go through Langar halls and they see Sikh stories on the wall, these would be really inspiring for them. So if there's any Gurdwara out there,
I'm sure we can help arrange that. The SIKH channel, we work very closely with a number of Gurdwara across the UK, and we'd be pleased to facilitate and organise perhaps a national exhibition which we can take across the UK and engage all communities, and not only the Sikh community. We'd be pleased to invite all the general public to come and visit and see these beautiful pieces of artwork, which are not just pretty paintings or Sikh art. They are a record of our history. They're very important. So it's quite a multifaceted project. And with that, do you feel some burden, Ben? Do you feel some burden or responsibility during this process?
Well, when I acquired the piece from auction, that was when I realised, and when I managed to get the work translated, that's when I realised that this is not just something I should keep and look at. This needs to be shared, and the men that manned these cannons, that fought for us, their stories can come back to life, and our history can come back to life. it's there for everyone to read about.
It's absolutely tremendous. Thank you very much. And finally, before I speak to Amar about his contribution to this project, how do your parents, and in particular your grandmother, how do they feel about what you've done?
Well, my mum is really proud, and she's got a few pieces at home, and when anybody comes around, she shows them and tells them the story. So she's really happy. And I recently gave this as a wedding present to my cousin, and he says that he absolutely loves it, and whenever he has guests over, he loves telling them the story and explaining what it means.
And that's the point really behind this artwork. It's an object of beauty and reverence, but behind the artwork there is a whole huge story to tell. It's got a story going back generations, hundreds of years, and it's more than art.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than art. Amar, you were part of this journey. Ben, Dhesi, your brother, began this project. And can you tell us about your involvement and how you took part?
Yeah, sure. Like Ben mentioned, I was coming back from university at MIT in America after the whole COVID situation. And as I was waiting for my role, Ben told me the story he just told you, and I was more than happy and willing to really jump on board to help this process and to shine a light on the Sikh history. And so what I did was build the website timelessandeternal.com, where building an e-commerce website where these prints can be viewed and the story is being told on the website. So when people are purchasing these prints, the story Ben just told you is also on the website for people to read from Sikh culture and from outside Sikh culture as well. And then I set up the social media channels at Timeless and Eternal Project on Instagram, so that
the young people understand that better than me.
So it seems to me Ben's is more the artist, and you're the engine behind that, sort of driving all the mechanics and the day-to-day, the practical stuff.
Absolutely,
is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. The operations behind it, from the understanding the whole sort of payment and logistical process. If people from Canada want this, or if people from India want this, how are we going to get this art out there? So I was dealing with that and met a few obstacles, but thankfully we've overcome them, and this can be shared globally now.
That's absolutely great, and SIKH Channel is very pleased that I think the way we came into contact is I came across Ben's. Perhaps you can tell us how SIKH Channel came across you and how we met.
I think it was LinkedIn.
Good old LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw one of your posts about Sikh history, and I said, we've just completed this website. I would love to meet and tell you about it. And I think you straight away contacted me back and said, this is great. We'd love to talk to you about it on the SIKH Channel.
I'm so pleased. Thank you, LinkedIn, for connecting us to Ben Dhesi and making this possible, and bringing this awareness and bringing it before the community, because a lot of people won't know about this work. And Ben, how important is the form of art to tell story and to connect younger people to our history, to our faith? Do you think art has got a role to play?
A huge role, because as a child growing up, you can remember what paintings, pictures you had around you on your grandparents' home, in your parents' home, in the Gurdwara, and this is where we can create a spark of interest, because if somebody sees a print like this and they read it, they might want to know, who's this Maharaja Ranjit Singh guy that they talk about, or what was this Gurkha Empire, what was all of the references, historical references in these prints can spark off a bit of historical curiosity within the next generation, and that's where they will learn and then research, and nowadays with the internet can learn all of this instantly. It was a bit more difficult in my day, but now they can.
That's right. The whole world is on the internet.
I see this as a window into that history.
It's a spark. It's something to ignite interest, something to get people to be inspired, and then they can discover so much more themselves.
That's right. And I think for me, the success I've had in life comes from having the self-confidence of knowing who I am and where I'm from. And I think that's what everybody needs. Our people need to know who they are, where they're from, and it will give them that platform to go forward and face
Absolutely.
any challenge.
A proud history gives us a solid foundation.
Correct, yeah, absolutely.
What is next, Ben? Because this is a fabulous project, it's an amazing project, and I'm so pleased you've come all this way to see us today to the Birmingham headquarters of SIKH Channel. What is next for you?
Well, I'm just finishing the book, and that hopefully will be published in September. But for me personally, I'm very busy at the moment with a project called the Hugo Energy App, which is an energy app that helps people save money on their energy bills. So
it's very much needed at present.
Yeah, so it's been very busy time for me, and we've had 15,000 downloads of the app since we launched in February, and at the moment it's helping people reduce their energy costs. So I'm really focused on that at the moment because it's something that people really need.
That's tremendous. Thank you very much for sharing your life story, your family history, and most importantly for bringing forward and sharing this tremendous SIKH history with all our viewers and with the community. And the SIKH Channel will work very closely with you to bring this exhibition to all the community, not just here in the UK but across Europe, and to our Indian team and our Canadian team, and perhaps we can discuss formalising a tour with you to help bring this history forward.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming to see us, and I'd like to congratulate you and Amar, and also not forgetting, and very importantly, we'd like to thank your parents, because often we forget there's a parents' influence, and their setting children off onto the right path can be very important. And I'd like to thank your parents for having helped inspire you to serve the community and come forward with this tremendous project. Thank you very much. And indeed, you've carried on that legacy where your grandfather gave so much and worked towards a community interest and for the Sikh faith with the Gurdwara in a very different form. We can see a continuation of that service in this project.
Yeah. My other grandfather, my mother's father, was called Ram Singh, and he was actually in the Second World War, and he was an artilleryman. So he was very much
so that's extremely relevant.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he was, so manning the cannons would have been. Is probably something in our legacy somewhere as well.
It's in the blood, I think, this connection to Sikh history. And thank you very much for coming today. We're so pleased to have you at SIKH Channel HQ, and we'll certainly take this project further with you.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.